No matter how you present yourself online, not everyone is going to like you. That is just the price of existing in a public space. But the hate that gets directed at VTubers has this unique flavor to it. It comes from multiple directions at once, and a lot of it has absolutely nothing to do with anything you actually did. Today we're breaking down the psychology behind all of it, where it comes from, why it manifests the way it does, and what it actually says about the people doing it, because I promise you, it says a lot more about them than it ever will about you. Good evening, readers. I see you picked up a book about why VTubers receive so much hate, so let me read it to you. I'll be explaining the book in 4 easy-to-read sections. First is about strangers, then we have viewers and family, and the deep psychology behind all of it, which turns out to be one thing: the mask resentment phenomenon, which I will be explaining near the end of the video. Let's start with the most visible kind, the hate that comes from people who have never really watched a single second of your content. Complete strangers. People who formed an opinion before they ever clicked on the channel. The first reason is the deception argument. It is the first thing strangers latch onto, which is the idea that using an avatar is inherently dishonest. That hiding behind a digital character means you're being fake or cowardly, or that you have something to hide. This argument sounds reasonable on the surface until you actually examine it, because actors do this, musicians have stage personas, actors write under pen names, and drag performers have been doing elaborate character-based entertainment for decades. Nobody is out here demanding that Lady Gaga drop every artistic persona and just stand there plainly. The avatar is a format choice, not a confession. The discomfort strangers feel about it isn't actually moral. It's just unfamiliarity dressed up in moral language because that's easier to argue with. Next we have cultural tribalism. And I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I had never heard of VTubing until I was older. And that matters more than people realized, because cultural tribalism is basically this idea that people attach themselves to what they grew up with, and anything outside of that can feel wrong, even if they can't explain why. Like, I just know if my grandpa was still alive, he probably wouldn't understand what I'm doing at all. Not because it's bad, but because it didn't exist in the world he understood. And the same thing is happening right now with streaming. A huge portion of the gaming and streaming community grew up with face cam content as the gold standard. Showing your face meant you were real. Eye contact with the camera meant authenticity, and that was the baseline. So when VTubing came in and not only existed, but started pulling in massive audiences, sometimes even bigger than traditional streamers, it didn't just feel different, it felt like a threat. Because now it's not just another way to stream. It challenges the idea of what a streamer is. And when people's belief systems get challenged like that, they don't usually respond with curiosity. They respond with defensiveness. It turns into this quiet identity war, my format versus your format. And tearing down the new thing starts to feel like protecting the old one, even though realistically, nobody ever asked them to choose. The second reason for strangers to hate is also the anime stigma. There's just straight up cultural bias against anime aesthetics that has existed long before VTubing was even a thing. A certain segment of the internet has spent years treating anime as something to be embarrassed about, such as juvenile or for people who can't engage with reality. And VTubing, by centering an anime-style avatar as the face of a real content creator, walks directly into that stigma. Strangers who hold that bias don't even evaluate the content. They see the art style and they've already decided. It's not a critique of you, it's a prejudice that was already there waiting for someone to land on. The last reason would be the assumption of low effort. Strangers also frequently assume that using an avatar means you're cutting corners and that facecam streamers are putting in real work, while VTubers are just hiding behind a cartoon to avoid accountability. What they don't see is the rigging, the software management, the persona maintenance, and the technical troubleshooting midstream. The assumption of laziness is projection. They've decided the format is easy because they don't understand it, and they don't understand it because they never bothered to try to understand. Now, let's talk about the hate that comes from viewers, the people who actually watch you, or used to, or just watch VTubers in general and still manage to find reasons to tear them down. The first reason is treating the avatar like it isn't a person. This one doesn't get talked about enough, and it genuinely needs to. There is this dehumanizing thing that happens when someone sees an anime character on screen, and some switch flips in their brain that turns off the part that registers a real human being is on the other side. Suddenly, the normal social rules feel optional. They'll say things in the chat or send a direct message that they would never say to someone's actual face, because at some level they've convinced themselves they're directing at a character, not a real person, but that person is right there, and treating cruelty as consequence-free because they don't see them as a real person isn't edgy or honest, it's just cruelty with a built-in excuse. The second reason a VTuber could be getting hate from a viewer is parasocial resentment. This one is psychologically fascinating and genuinely painful to be on the receiving end of. Viewers build up intense emotional connections to VTuber personas, and because the character is so carefully crafted and consistent, that connection can feel even more concentrated than what develops with a facecam streamer. And then something happens. The streamer either takes a break, sets a boundary, or changes something about their content, or they just have a human moment that doesn't match the fantasy, and some viewers feel genuinely and deeply betrayed, and they turn that hurt outward. They leave angry comments and try to post callouts, but none of it is what you did. This is about what they projected onto a character and then blamed you for not maintaining forever. The parasocial contract was something they wrote alone. The last reason is the selling a fake personality accusation. Viewers who feel let down will sometimes escalate to accusing VTubers of being fundamentally fraudulent, performing a personality that isn't real in order to manipulate an audience into caring. And there's something worth unpacking there, because yes, a VTuber persona is a constructed presentation, but so is every public-facing identity. Every streamer, YouTuber, or podcaster is presenting a version of themselves that is curated for an audience. The difference with VTubing is that the construction is more visible because the avatar makes it obvious that a persona is in play, and somehow that transparency gets used against creators instead of being recognized for what it is. Critics want you to be both more authentic and less obviously performative at the same time, and those two demands cannot coexist. Now here's the one that really hits different: the hate the VTuber might receive from their family. The first reason is that they just don't understand it. For a lot of families, VTubing lands somewhere between completely invisible and actively confusing. They didn't grow up with streaming culture, they don't have a framework for what a content creator does or why it matters, and a character talking to thousands of people on the internet is so far outside their reference points that their brain just categorizes it as strange. And when people don't understand something, their default is often dismissal. Not out of cruelty necessarily, but out of the discomfort of not having a category to put it in. So, oh my gosh, I have to read that again. The second reason is the embarrassment factor. There's this generational embarrassment dimension that is very real and very specific to this format. Some family members are fine with "my kid makes videos online" that has enough cultural precedent, now that it is at least graspable, but "my kid streams as an anime character" introduces a layer of weirdness that they don't know how to explain to their friends, their coworkers, or extended family. And rather than sitting with that discomfort or doing the work of understanding it, some people externalize that embarrassment as criticism directed at you. They're not really criticizing your content, they're managing their own social anxiety about how to contextualize you to the world around them. Next is the "is this sustainable" anxiety. Then there's a concern that gets dressed up as criticism, the "is this a real job" conversation, the "what's your backup plan" conversation, and the constant low-grade skepticism about whether what you're building is real or stable. And to be fair, some of that comes from genuine love and fear, but some of it is also just a failure to take the medium seriously because of the aesthetic. A family member might be fully supportive of a YouTube career or a Twitch career in theory, but the VTube model introduces a layer of "is this serious" that they can't get past, as if the art style has anything to do with the business model behind it. So we've talked about where the hate comes from, now let's talk about what's actually happening underneath all of it, which can be explained as the mask resentment phenomenon, which is the tendency for people to feel discomfort or frustration towards someone using a persona or avatar, because it challenges their expectations of authenticity and makes them feel disconnected, so they respond with hostility instead of understanding. There are certain stages to this. First, we have being anonymous removes empathy. The internet has always had an anonymous problem, but something specific happens in VTuber spaces where the avatar on screen creates a second layer of distance. The viewer feels anonymous, and they're watching something that is clearly not real, and that double layer of unreality can completely dissolve normal human empathy. People say things to VTubers that they would never say to a facecam streamer, not because the content is different, but because the aesthetic signals fiction, and fiction feels consequence-free. This is a known psychological phenomenon, the dehumanization of targets through abstraction, and it is being weaponized against real people every day. Next is novelty bias. Human beings have a complicated relationship with new things. We're drawn to novelty and we're also threatened by it, often simultaneously. VTubing as a mainstream format is still relatively young in the context of internet culture, and anything new gets stress tested by the loudest, most reactive corners of any community. A lot of the hate that VTubers receive right now is simply the friction of a format that hasn't been fully normalized yet. The same arguments being made today about VTubers being fake or lazy or deceptive were made about YouTubers when YouTube started, about podcasters, about bloggers. Every format gets its hazing period, and VTubers are right now in the middle of one. Lastly is projection and displacement. A huge percentage of online hate, not just VTuber hate, but all of it, is displaced emotion. People who are happy, frustrated, stagnant, or scared look for targets that feel safe to be angry at. Public-facing creators are ideal targets because they're visible. They can't easily fight back, and criticizing them feels like having an opinion rather than projecting. And when someone dedicates real energy to hating a VTuber they've never spoken to, they are almost certainly not actually angry about the avatar. They are angry about something else, and you happen to be in the line of sight. So here's what I want you to take away from this. The hate is real. It hurts, and you are allowed to feel that. Almost none of it is actually about you. The avatar is what they see, but you are what's actually there. And every creator who has ever done something differently, something that didn't really fit neatly into the existing categories, has had to walk through this path. But the ones who kept going were the ones we remember. So keep going. The character might be fictional, but the work you're putting into is absolutely not.